We would like to take this opportunity to thank those who have stayed in the struggle to document the biggest ever fraud in sporting history for posterity. Some of them are recognized here, and we will recognize others as we go along in our series of videos on this topic. They have inspired us to return to the fray and produce a series of videos through which we will show how, under the Abu Dhabi floodlights, and with the whole world watching, the different plotters conspired with John Malone, Liberty Media, and the FIA to turn Formula One into Fraudmula One. We will start off by setting out the evidence that suggests how John Malone was able to co-opt the FIA into carrying out the fraud. We will then show the possible motivation for the other co-conspirators to participate in the fraud. We invite those who have not yet done so to subscribe and click the notifications icon to be notified when the next video is uploaded. For the record, we never believed any of the excuses that were put forward to gaslight the fraud. Now, with the passage of time, many of those excuses or explanations have been debunked, and the only thing left is for us to expose the motivation for the fraud. The excuse that they did it because they don't want races finishing behind a safety car has been exposed because Verstappen has since won behind a safety car. It could not have been because they wanted to end domination by one team, because Verstappen is now more dominant than any driver in history. It was not because they are unable to reverse decisions, because they have since reversed decisions for Alonso. It was not down to one man's error, because he had a team supporting him and the stewards panel upheld his so-called error. Furthermore, the newly revamped processes and experts have continued to change rules mid-race to gift victories to Max Verstappen. We don't know about you, but the fact that the newly crowned Verstappen qualified 6th in Austin after having his lap times deleted only makes us wonder how many other times had he exceeded track limits in previous races without any sanctions. His and Red Bull's uncharacteristic response to the sanction only deepens our suspicion that the whole thing was staged, and suggests that F1 and the FIA are starting to wilt under the pressure of public disgust at the extent of manipulation going on in the sport today. Until this event, Red Bull had a long track record of only suffering nominal sanctions for serious breaches that have given them significant advantages over their rivals. So, sanctioning Verstappen now, when he has already been gifted yet another title, seems a bit too convenient for us. Returning to the theme of debunked theories, the FIA and F1 could not have manipulated the race for the benefit of Netflix, because Netflix is a rival to Malone's Warner Media. Not only did they rob Sir Lewis in the full glare of the public, but since December 2021, F1 has been consistently trying to frustrate him out of the sport, because they are concerned about what he can achieve with a resurgent Mercedes. The jewelry matter, free speech, revisiting past infractions, and the move by Massa to revisit 2008 are all designed to create a hostile working environment for Hamilton. These things are not happening by chance, they are clearly being orchestrated. To highlight how Malone turned Formula One into Fraudmula One, it is necessary for us to set out the backdrop to the fraud. To this end, we will begin by showing that Malone is the epitome of the media barons, who are poisoning the world by deliberately spreading fake news for profit. We have already shown in previous videos available under several of our playlists that he has a long-standing track record for fanning the flames of racial discord by providing the platform that the likes of Steve Bannon used to spread malicious lies and propagate the message of white supremacy that propelled Trump to power. In this series, we will present new evidence to show how he is using the same dark arts to create a hostile environment for Lewis Hamilton, including actions like spreading the poisonous lies that Massey was entitled to rig the race, after that was debunked, then claiming that it was not possible to reverse the results. Other acts included using the media to attack Hamilton's character, etc., etc. Finally, in this video, we will reveal exclusive evidence of how he was able to bend the FIA, F1, and mainstream media to his will. Malone was able to commit the biggest fraud ever in sporting history, because of how extensive his media empire is. As one of the world's most influential, if not the most influential media baron, Malone has been able to bend governments, regulators, and competitors to his will. His media reach is so extensive and his grip on Formula One so tight, that F1 and mainstream media were whipped into selling the fake story that Lewis was not robbed. The sting in the tail is that Toto Wolff and Mercedes bent the knee within 5 days. If anyone knows of any media outlet that has produced any program or documentary exposing the blatant robbery, please post the link in the comments section below. This deafening silence contrasts sharply with the proliferation of outlets that have gaslit, told outright lies, or attacked Lewis Hamilton and Mercedes instead. There is no mainstream media today that is not trading in fake news, so none of his competitors saw fit to produce programs revealing the evidence that has been hiding in plain sight and which we are now bringing to your attention. No crime investigating agencies anywhere in the world have seen fit to investigate and expose this most obvious example of race fixing. No anti-monopolies commission in Europe or elsewhere has seen fit to investigate this either, even though Abu Dhabi is the classic example of what can go wrong when the owner of the television rights is a media baron. Anyone expressing a contrary opinion can expect to be drummed out of F1, just like Johnny Herbert. None of the F1 teams and drivers that were disadvantaged by the manipulation have challenged the results. Mercedes, the biggest, most successful team in the history of F1, whose driver, the most successful ever, suffered the injustice that they challenged in the heat of the moment, bent the knee in less than 5 days. An act that will tarnish their image forever. These are all clear signs that somebody is exerting undue influence behind the scenes, and that person can only be John Malone. So how was Malone able to do all this? Well, as you can see, his media empire is vast. Critically, he owns media companies, broadcasters, cable providers, and program makers, so of course politicians and governments are disinclined to upset him for fear of losing office or elections. However, getting to the hub of the matter and the big reveal, it is important to understand that F1 is owned and governed by the FIA. Liberty Media only bought the commercial rights. So, how was Malone able to wield such influence and conduct himself as if he owned F1? Well, when he bought the commercial rights, he also compromised the FIA. Critically, at the time of the purchase, the European Commission had cause to look into the issue of anti-competitive practices, because they were concerned about a possible conflict of interest in the FIA, approving the sale of the commercial rights to Formula One to Liberty Media, when the FIA held a 1% share in the company that held those rights. Yes, you had that correctly, the regulator owns a commercial interest in the regulated entity. So, of course, there is a moral risk that FIA's role as a regulator could be influenced by its financial interest in the regulated entity. If Malone was doing something untoward, which could possibly benefit or damage F1 financially, then the FIA could be induced to look the other way to enjoy the benefits or protect their investment. By way of an illustration, the shareholders of Rupert Murdoch's News Corporation and their flagship Fox News conveniently looked the other way when Fox News was making a fortune from broadcasting fake news for years, ultimately leading up to the promotion of the stolen election narrative. But, when the lawsuits started impacting their bottom line, they launched their own lawsuits against the company and Murdoch. It is therefore possible to see how Malone could influence the FIA into manipulating the race to defraud Lewis Hamilton in the expectation of sharing in the profits that Liberty Media had projected would follow as a result. There was a clear conflict of interest when Liberty Media acquired the commercial rights to Formula One. A situation in which the regulator has an interest in the regulated entity is clearly of concern, and that concern has been heightened by what happened in Abu Dhabi, and offers the only credible explanation of why the FIA and F1 colluded to execute and then attempt to cover up the fraud. And then, when they were forced to admit it, they still refused to reverse the injustice. In our next video, we will attempt to clear up the fog surrounding the structures underpinning Liberty Media's entry into the sport, to reveal the opacity and layering that are the red flags, indicating that people are going to great lengths to mask evidence of wrongdoing. So, if you haven't already, we invite you to like, subscribe, and click the notifications icon to be notified when the next video in the series is uploaded. Thank you.